My name is Matt Holt, and this is Easing into SystemLink from LabVIEW. While you read my resume on the screen, a few housekeeping things. I don't like to present. It makes me incredibly nervous, so let's not make this a presentation. Let's make this an interactive conversation. Please ask questions. If there's something that I move too quickly, ask me to slow down. Give me that feedback. I might say, let's parking lot that. Let's talk about it after we're done. Just accept that I'll make sure you get an answer to any of your questions about SystemLink. I am a certified LabVIEW architect, but realistically, I have not written LabVIEW professionally in a few years. So when I'm in LabVIEW and we're walking through the code, y'all bear with me there too. All right. Does everybody feel like they're in the right spot? We're going to be talking about SystemLink. Awesome. Okay, poll the audience. Give me a show of hands, people who have heard of SystemLink. Okay, that's great. Good job, marketing. Let's have those hands go back up if you've logged in to SystemLink, whether it be in a hands-on. Okay, this is good. Okay. So I'm going to adjust the content a little bit to make sure that we cover everything, everything for the basics.
I just heard of SystemLink today. So I had heard of it, but it was today.
That's
I've never
great.
heard of it before.
Well, I'm so glad you came by. We're going to give you a very tiny deep dive.
If you can, I don't know what your presentation is, but what I've seen, I'm intrigued.
Awesome, awesome. I have a lot of content at the front where we're going to talk about what SystemLink is and how you use SystemLink. And then we'll spend a little bit of time in the system, actually on the web UI, walking through a couple of the modules. And then I promise, I'll open up LabVIEW and we'll run a couple example VIs. I'm not going to do one of those things where I have some really awesome code that I'm going to stick on the screen and tell you can download later and you never get. I'm going to use the examples. So you'll be able to touch this code as soon as you log into LabVIEW and install the SystemLink client. So let's go ahead and get started. Matt Holt, Principal Solutions Architect. I work in a group that's customer solutions centric, primarily helping customers install and configure SystemLink. Some of my customers, if anybody saw the presentation this morning during the keynote, there were some really great folks from Raytheon. I had the honor of working with them on their SystemLink deployment. Why are we here? So I don't like calling it an agenda. This is why we're here. We're going to talk about what SystemLink is. We'll talk a little bit about the APIs, the RESTful web APIs, which I think was a fantastic decision by R&D. And then we'll dive into a couple examples and demos. I'll spend some of that demo time in LabVIEW and some of that demo time actually in the web interface. I'm going to be focused on SystemLink Server today. And the reason I specify that, we'll talk a little bit about the deployment options as well. Well, let's dive in. So I had a really great question before this started. What is SystemLink? SystemLink is a tool set, a set of modules designed to help you as test engineers connect, manage, and maintain your test stations and all the assets that are connected to them. That comes in a few different modules. The test insights module is going to be where we put data. So the second point there, monitor and analyze parametric tests. We integrate directly with TestStand. Do I have any TestStand users? I know it's a LabVIEW session, but okay, awesome. So in TestStand, we have a results processing plugin. It's a couple clicks. So long as you didn't make crazy changes to the process model, getting data into SystemLink for TestStand users is going to be a couple seconds. Very, very little impact for you. For LabVIEW developers, we do ship the toolkit. We'll talk about that as well. But I think the biggest part, and the part that excites me the most as a former test engineer about SystemLink, is the ability to effectively remotely manage system software packages. SystemLink provides what's basically remote NIPM. I think we're all familiar with NIPM and what the capabilities are there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. One of the functions modules that's not available on SystemLink Server, but it is in SystemLink Enterprise, and I promise I'm going to explain that a little bit more very soon, allows you to do lab management from a perspective of test plans and DUT management, and even on the roadmap, no promises when it may or may not be available, is the ability to remotely execute those test plans on test stations for which you have authorization and approval for. The last piece, the automated analysis and reporting. Can I get a show of hands, Python developers? Anybody? Awesome. Well, I have great news for y'all. All of the analysis automation that's built into SystemLink, all of the reports that are built into SystemLink use Jupyter Hub and Python. So you've got a leg up. But I think one of the greatest things the R&D team did, all of the shipping example reports, you can download the source and modify. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to go to a wiki. You don't have to go to our website. They're on your server. when you install SystemLink, and you'll have access to them immediately. And I'll show you that as well. One of the features and functionalities that I really enjoy about that analysis automation component is if the ability to do extract, transform, load pipelines. So if I've got data from 20 years ago written in a CSV file, and I need to ingest that into SystemLink's standard format for processing analytics and comparing it with today's data, fresh data coming from test stand. It's just an ETL process written in Python. Python can access the file, extract the data from it, transform it to the format that SystemLink uses, and load it into SystemLink through the same APIs that we can use from LabVIEW as we will today. It's incredibly powerful for getting data from non-NI systems. We're not just NI, LabVIEW, and test stand. I've got systems using IEEE standards, PDL. I've got systems using random text files from many years ago where we've written ingestions for customers. So it's a very open platform. I did briefly mention that there are 2 deployment options for SystemLink, just to put it up on the screen. So SystemLink Server, that's the solution that's been around since about 2017. It's matured a tremendous amount. It's a very mature product. It allows you to connect a number of test stations, a number of nodes, and do quite a bit of work. I've seen up to 200 systems connected to SystemLink Server, depending upon what you're doing. But we're starting to see need for truly enterprise opportunities, people that have 1,000 testers, that have a lot more scale. And that's why we introduced SystemLink Enterprise. That's about as far as I'm going to go talking about the difference between the 2 solutions. If there's something that I show you that is specific to one of the 2 deployments, I'll try to call that out. But our APIs, our LabVIEW toolkit, all of the reports, they work in both systems the same way. So just know that there's some very successful compatibility designed into those systems. Now, when I talk about managing clients, managing nodes or test stations with SystemLink, we do install a client. It's an incredibly light client. For anybody that's curious, we built it on top of the SALT stack. So that allows you to do remote management of the system. It allows us a secure connectivity path for collecting system health data. So when you connect a system to SystemLink, you install the client, you point the client to a server, and you approve that client on the server side so that there's a limited 2-factor authentication. Nobody can just connect to your server and start grabbing data. They do have to be approved on both sides. The client, I've done quite a bit of resource testing. You can use Resource Monitor in Windows, load up a fresh copy of Windows, install the SystemLink client, connect it to a server, and run Resource Monitor. And you're not going to see the SystemLink client in the top 10 resources. So we run very, very light until you specifically request something like an installation, and then you don't really see the overhead for it. So very powerful component. The same client works on SystemLink Server and SystemLink Enterprise, so you don't have to worry about if there's a deployment option. If you started with SystemLink Server and upgraded to SystemLink Enterprise, the clients aren't going to change. You just point it to a new server. Navigating in SystemLink, I show actually 2 menus there. The one on the left, your left, is SystemLink Enterprise, SystemLink Server, and the one on your right is SystemLink Enterprise. You'll see that the modules are very similar. We've got a systems management module, test insights, where we put test data. It's a little bit different on SystemLink Enterprise. It's more of a product-centric. When you're talking about thousands of stations and thousands of DUTs, you're probably looking at it more from a product perspective. But the functionality is very similar between the 2, and they both start with the navigation button in the top left. Most of you, as test engineers, will focus your time on the systems management and test/product insights modules. Let's dig a little bit more into the systems management module. You can manage and install software for your entire test fleet. So any system that's connected, you can effectively, I mentioned it very briefly, it's effectively remote NIPM. So you can see what software is installed on the station, and you can update. We use feed management just like when you use feeds in NIPM, but SystemLink also has the ability to host feeds, which we'll talk about very briefly. The other thing that SystemLink is going to provide you is an audit trail. So when somebody does make a change, you'll know who did it, when they did it, so that if you're doing, say, an RCA, a root cause analysis, and you need to know what version of software was on a test station when a specific test was executed, you'll be able to track that with SystemLink. Really save you a lot of time. Out of the box, SystemLink also monitors CPU, memory, and disk utilization. I was at funny enough, since y'all saw the keynote this morning, I was at Raytheon and I was doing a presentation, some training about SystemLink and the system's health monitoring. And I logged into their system and I just randomly picked a station and it showed 100% utilization on the CPU. Interesting, it's got an alarm, it's telling me that there's a problem. So I click on the utilization and I look, and it's been that way for days. So we go and we run a report that we developed for them that showed failure rate, and it was sky high. Basically everything he tested over the last few days had failed. He'd gotten an email telling him that there was a problem. The engineer responsible had gotten an email telling him that there was a problem, and they both kind of just dismissed it because I was there to train them on what they were supposed to do. Called that station, hey, reboot the server, reboot the test station. So he did. And he ran the same system, the same DUT that had just failed, and it passed. So we actually had him pull everything out of the bone pile and retest. He would have gone that entire week, maybe longer, until a scheduled standard reboot on that station occurred. And we were able to see that during class remotely from another site. So that was a very powerful example of the capabilities of monitoring that. I think disk is also a big pain in the butt. As a test engineer running out of disk space, finding out after the fact, after your failure rate's gone up. Let's be real, the ops guys and manufacturing teams aren't real patient with us when something goes wrong with the test station. So having the ability to see that status and the health monitoring capabilities remotely, an alarm on that so that we're not reactive to the situation, very powerful. We also track assets that are connected to the system. So anything that would typically just automatically show up in NI Max, Skippy compliant hardware, all the NI hardware, Tektronix scopes, Keysight scopes, they tend to show up. We're going to also push that data up into SystemLink Server. So if you've got a scope that has its firmware published through Skippy, we're automatically going to show that firmware side by side with the test station. So now you've got a more complete picture of how the test station was configured, what hardware was used, what firmware was used. And the last piece is tracking utilization of the test station. We get a lot of questions as test engineers about capacity. We get asked about uptime. We get asked about whether the system is being used efficiently. SystemLink provides APIs. So there's some automatic utilization tracking. If you're using test stand, we're automatically going to report that entire test station as used for production test during the execution of test stand. Those APIs are open, so you can also log individual instruments if you want. Incoming future capability, we've added to the NI Visa driver if you're using the SystemLink client, and you activate that driver, you initialize an instrument, we start to log that as utilized in SystemLink. So you can see how the equipment's actually being used, when it's being used, and track it back to the station it was used on, and the operator. So there's a lot of power just built into the monitoring before we've really done anything more than just install the SystemLink client. I did mention briefly the software configuration capabilities. We are effectively NIPM, remote NIPM. So if the server and the client have access to ni.com, you can keep using NI packages all day. We'll just show you what you've got installed. We'll show you the configuration for the packages. But SystemLink also allows you to host your own packages. If you build a LabVIEW package or a test stand package, or if you've ever used NI Package Builder to build third-party software into a NI package, you can host that on SystemLink. You can deploy that to connected systems through SystemLink, and you can remove it through SystemLink if need be. My favorite example is I absolutely love Notepad++ for debugging. I get a lot of logs. I'm used to seeing them a certain way, so I have an NI package that installs Notepad++. I've got it hosted on a feed on my dev server. I can install it remotely, walk to the station, use the tools I'm used to, walk back to my computer and uninstall it, and they never know I was there. I've got a customer that uses an NI package builder based solution to just drop a folder on the desktop of utilities that they're used to using. So you can do that from SystemLink. While he's headed out, it's copying down and installing anything that he needs. So there's a lot of power between the systems management feeds and states. A state, since I mentioned a state. Imagine if you could take a snapshot of the software on a test station, know where it came from, so you've got the feeds list, you have the exact version of the software, the exact version of all the dependencies, and store that. And I'm not talking about a bitwise copy or clone of the machine. I'm talking about a small text file. SystemLink provides that to us. So we can save that as a state. So a state is a combination of feeds and packages that once I've done that, So let's say I have a golden machine. I just finished hours of installing, downloading NI software from NI.com, installing everything, getting that computer set up, and now I have to go do that again on another station. I don't have to do that second station manually. I didn't really have to stand there for the first station, but let's say that I did. With a few button clicks in SystemLink Server, you can create a state that captures the source of the software and all the packages, and I can go to another system. All I've installed on that system is the SystemLink client. From the web interface, I can push that state back to that client. So now I've duplicated the installation. Again, not a clone, so I'm not wasting 30 gigabytes of space somewhere. It's a small installation script that allows you to install and duplicate those systems remotely. Incredibly powerful feature for folks that have to duplicate systems. It also allows you to do comparisons. What was the golden state to what's installed now? So I'll give you an example of that as well. I mentioned briefly earlier, asset traceability. I'm seeing a lot of conversations with some manufacturing companies around capacity planning. Some of the RF equipment, it's obviously costly, and it's important that you justify expenditures for more equipment. We're going to track that. We give you the tools to track it. As you see on the screen, for any NI Visa compatible equipment, we're automatically going to track that down to the asset itself. If you're designing a new test set and you want to see what equipment's common across your fleet, we can show you all the connected assets across the fleet. And you can see where that hardware has been used, where it's been moved to. I had another RCA where somebody had, wow, the word is gone. They had correlated a specific scope to a field failure. I don't know how they did that, but they wanted to know all the dots that were tested with that scope. They were able to pull that data right out of SystemLink, saved them a lot of time. Any non-connected assets or assets that we don't automatically detect. I said we automatically detect Skippy. We also give you, through the same APIs we use to track that Skippy hardware, the RESTful APIs, you can add any asset that you want. I've got a customer on the West Coast. They used to have somebody walk around and write down tank levels for nitrogen. We digitized that. We created the tanks as assets in SystemLink Server, and now it tells them when they need more nitrogen. Fairly simple, connected solution. It really has very little to do directly with the test station, but it's that ancillary asset information that they were having to maintain. The intern now gets to work on something instead of walking around with a clipboard and then digitizing it at their desk. All of the data stored in SystemLink, from systems health through asset information, software configuration, test data, can all be exported. There's UIs for a lot of the export. I'll show you a couple of those, but the APIs allow you to export any of the data that you see in there. Data management. Sorry, somebody got up. I just want to make sure. Thank you. You can collect, store, and view test results, files, and parametric data. Obviously, we talked a little bit about test stand already. It's a couple clicks to configure test stand to capture data. I love the LabVIEW toolkit. It just makes my job a lot easier. Obviously, there's a lot of RESTful web endpoints in SystemLink, and not all of them are supported by the toolkit. So I'll show you how to access the information and all the documentation on those endpoints as well. But all the way back to Windows 98 v2, you could call get and put, HTTP get and put. That's all that's required to interact with SystemLink Server. So it's incredibly powerful from that perspective. There's no special sauce in our user interface. So what we see on the web UI, you can do through the APIs. There's a lot of filtering and sorting and searching functionality built in. I don't have a tremendous amount of data or systems on my dev server that we'll use, but we'll touch on that as well. Some of the displays and some of the dashboards that you saw this morning, we're using Grafana. So Grafana is a third-party tool that allows some fairly advanced data analytics and presentations. We have a built-in widget-based point-and-click set of tile dashboards that make it really easy to visualize data in SystemLink and SystemLink Server. With both SystemLink Server and SystemLink Enterprise, we've also enabled Grafana, multiple data sources to pull data in. So I'll spend a very, very small amount of time when we're walking through SystemLink to look at some of those dashboards. Last but not least, alarming and notifications. So all of that system health information goes into what we call tags. Tags is a relatively common term in data historians. It's time series data. The tank levels at that customer that I mentioned, the tank level is a tag. I can tell you what the level was at a certain point in time. Our CPU, our disk usage, our memory usage, those are all tags. SystemLink server has the ability to send a notification, set an alarm so that you see it on the UI, but also send an email through SMTP. For anybody who's not familiar with it, most major carriers, especially in the US, you can send an email to an address that shows up as a text message on your phone. So indirectly, we can send you a text message. If you use Microsoft Teams, most channels have an email address. So you can configure an email to go to that Teams and it'll show up as a channel notification. So there's lots of ways to collaborate or just send regular emails. I don't know about y'all, but I read my emails about twice a day. So I look for those text messages and I look in Teams. From a SystemLink connectivity perspective and the RESTful APIs, we've talked so far primarily about getting data in and what kind of data is available. But we're not really limited to just test information. I've got, funny enough, the same customer that we digitized their tank levels. They have a really great metrology solution that's terrible for the test engineers. It just takes time to log in, pull the data that they need. I'm already tracking the assets. I'm already tracking the instrumentation in SystemLink. So all we did was create a tool that does an extract, transform, load. I pull a JSON file from their metrology solution, I pull it into SystemLink, I parse it out, and I load that data against the assets that are already registered in SystemLink. There's lots of applications of the ability to pull data in and out of SystemLink. That's my favorite. I've got another one where we're working on integrations with their MES system. They want to know what hardware we're using, and we want to know what DUT's coming. So it's a two-way integration for an MES system. All our APIs allow for that. We do support Windows-based systems, Windows 7 SP1 or newer. Older systems, our client doesn't support, but we can still pull data from them. It's just a RESTful web service call. Linux controller, if you see on the screen, it's got 2 stars because it's the NI Linux RT, so that's your C RIOs, your SB RIOs. We support those right out of the box as well. Pixie systems, whether they're Windows or Linux as well. All right, now we're gonna get a little bit deeper. 2 very well documented, incredibly well documented, kudos to NI R&D. There's an HTTP/HTTPS, that's the RESTful Web Services interfaces, and then there's an automatically generated wrapper for Python libraries. You can use those libraries in SystemLink. We ship with what's called Jupyter Hub, which is a nice Python IDE on the web, so you don't have to install anything. The Python libraries, the Python documentation, and the HTTP documentation are all included with SystemLink Server. I'm just curious, just to poll the audience, heard of Swagger? Ever use Swagger? Yeah, I do have a couple people. All right, I'm going to show you all an example of this because I absolutely love it. It's almost to the point of back in the day, you could generate web service calls from LabVIEW if they had a SOAP. This is even easier from my perspective because it tells you the data format. And you can touch, poke, prod, actually call the endpoint directly from Swagger. So you've done 0 installations on your computer and you can see how the interfaces are actually going to work all the way down to the curl call that would replicate the call that you produced on the web. And because this is a LabVIEW session, I'm going to spend some time talking about the LabVIEW toolkit. I've highlighted in green the functions, the palettes that we're going to look at today. Configuration, that's managing the connection with the SystemLink server. We'll touch on that a little bit. That's how we open connect to the existing connection that's created by the client. But we can also use credentials or API keys. We're not limiting you to only pulling data from registered clients. You can do file transfer. There's always somebody who wants an extra file or an extra bit of data. So you can connect. You can just upload files by themselves or you can connect them with test results. Test monitor, again, that's going to be that test data. So we're creating results and steps. It follows very much the paradigm of test stand, where you've got a result that has steps, and steps can be parents or children. So that same sort of hierarchy exists on the data structure in SystemLink. And last but not least, we'll talk a little bit about the tags interface and that palette. Again, tags are that time series data slow moving, temperature, tank, CPU usage type stuff. Okay, I promise not to kill you with slides. So let's hop over into my VM. Yeah, it's going to make me kill that first, isn't it? I do all of my development in VMs. I learned years ago not to install more than one version of LabVIEW. While that's gotten better, it's still just a nice habit that I can set up a nice environment that's isolated. So I'm in Hyper-V. I have LabVIEW 2024 Q1 installed. I've already installed the SystemLink client. So here on the left, we've got the client. Gives me the name, unique identifiers, and a server that I've connected it to. We can see on the client that we're already connected. So this is a registered, managed system on SystemLink. All right. I'm going to log into SystemLink. We support regular Windows logins, we support LDAP, and we support SSO. If I had single sign-on enabled, I would just have a single sign-on button and it would use my Windows credentials and check against the IT infrastructure for who I am. I'm going to do all the demos in SystemLink Server. If we have time at the end and there are questions about SystemLink Enterprise, please stick around. I am more than happy to walk over into a SystemLink Enterprise demo system and walk through. Landing page for SystemLink Server, all web UI. I'm going to start in the Systems Management module. I can see how many systems I have registered, how many systems are currently connected, disconnected. All of these are clickable. So if I just wanted to see the connected systems, I could click on that. These BPT systems are actually out on the show floor and the expo floor. Thanks DMC for letting me use you as an example team. Appreciate that. And this dev box that I'm using as a Hyper-V is also showing up as registered. That created a filter just by clicking on it. I'm going to clear that filter. And halfway down the screen, I have a filter button. And I can filter against just about any property. If I wanted to say the host name contains my name, I can quickly filter. I don't have any that have my name in them. Matt H, interesting. I can change this display and add more information to it. So if there are properties that I want to add that I don't see, I can customize it so that I'm not looking at NI's perspective of how I manage and view my test stations. I'm looking at your view. So I said we could add different tags, and I can give it a name. If I wanted to give CPU usage or disk space usage, I could add tags that are connected to each system as well. So the grids are all customizable so that you're looking at it again your way. I think one of my favorites, actually, I'm just going to add it because it's bugging me that it's not here now. I can get a property and grab the operating system, and I'm going to put that up right at the top. So there we can see I've got one CREO without even looking at the name and a bunch of Windows 10 boxes, and I have a VM running Windows 7 for testing and development. So I get an idea of what the fleet looks like, whether they're connected, disconnected, straight from here. I've got a column that shows us the alarms, 9 alarms. I need to call STOS. That's not good news. But there are no active alarms on my dev system. Has something. Let's see what this guy is. So I've got a low memory alarm. I'll just click on that and see when it happened. And then I get a brief introduction to what the alarms look like, all the data that we're tracking, all the system health. I have CPU usage per CPU, for example, disk use, total, free. And I can set up alarms on any of these values. For the test stations on the customer that I mentioned where they're tracking their tanks, we added those underneath the system as well so that they can set alarms against the system and see them all in one place. I'm going to go back to that systems management screen. And I'm just going to click on my dev system. So immediately we can see from an overview perspective, it saved that I was in alarms and tags last time. So I just went over to overview. Jobs that have failed are usually a result of me pulling the system offline or shutting it down dirty. I'm not very nice to my VMs. I tend to just turn them off. But I can see CPU usage over time, disk and memory usage just show up immediately. And that was where we saw that alarm earlier about memory usage. System settings. Now I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can basically do anything that I want to do. I could actually change the host name change its group and organization. I usually give things a usable alias. A lot of folks want to use asset tag IDs, etc., without changing the IT sanctioned host name to make it useful for test engineers. I promised I would show you software configuration management. Now, I don't have a lot of screen real estate, so I'm just going to hide part of that top bar so that we have a little bit more we can see. If you went on my dev machine and loaded an iPackage Manager, you would see the same thing I'm seeing here. What software is installed. There's that wonderful products only checkbox that we're used to in an IPM. And I can see what I installed down to the version number, all of the drivers, all the add-ons. And from here, I have the option to uninstall. I'm not going to uninstall anything. I don't want to break my dev box, but if there was something that I wanted to remove, I could uninstall it remotely. I'm going to say uninstall just so that you've seen what it looks like. And it's actually communicating from the server to the client right now. And if I hit apply, it's going to ask me if I want to reboot. This is where I'm going to cancel because I don't want to remove that from my machine. But you can also schedule it to automatically reboot the client when it's done. So there's not a whole lot of high touch that you have to do for software management. I'm going to go revert. And we saw the installed software. Feed management, it's just like enabling feed management on an IPM. These are all public feeds. Except for this last one. I told you I use Notepad++, so I'll show y'all where that feed is set up, but it's pointed to the same server. So I am hosting that package on this machine directly side by side with the system pointing at feeds from ni.com. Available, assuming the internet's fast enough in the conference, it would show me any available updates or any software from the feeds that aren't currently installed. States, I talked briefly about what a state is, but I'm going to create one from this system very quickly so that you've seen how easy it is. And the conference Wi-Fi is killing me. It wouldn't be a demo if something didn't work, right? All right, there we go. So I see this software. I'm just going to say that this is my golden state. There's a context menu for commands over here. And if I say create state, a couple seconds later, it's going to tell me all the software. Ooh, I said NI week. That's a habit. After 20 or so NI weeks, it's hard to say NI connect. All right, I see the same feeds that we saw on the other side. I can scroll down and I can see all 671 packages and their software version. I can save that just by hitting create. Now, I was in systems, and since I created a state, now I'm in states. So I'm going to click on states just to show you everything that I have here. We just created one where I mistyped and I connect.
In the middle.
Thank you. Somebody's got good eyes. So I can open that and I can see it. And it's the same one we just created. Now, if I go back to systems, and I'm just going to pick another system. I'm going to pick the one on the floor, so I'm going to make sure that I don't actually change anything. Under software on that system, I see states. And it's only going to list the states that are compatible with that system. Demo during an iConnect. If I hit install, it's going to query that machine live, and it's going to come back and tell me what's missing from that machine compared to what I have in the state. That's kind of nice. I can quickly replicate. But one of my favorite things to do is I'm going to compare two systems together. So I highlight two systems and I click compare. And immediately I get the system, one of the systems that I connected on the left, one on the right. You can see that there's 142 changes. They're highlighted. But I can also compare it not just to a live system, I can compare it to one of those states. So I'm going to pick the state, assuming I can find it again. Demo during an iConnect. These should be identical. Hey, look at that. Awesome. So what I basically did was I created a golden state. A couple months pass. People have touched the box. Something's not working. I can just compare its current configuration to the state that I actually sent it through certification. If anything's changed, if drivers have changed, I'll be able to see that. If somebody's updated LabVIEW or installed a new toolkit, I'll be able to see that. So it makes it very easy to identify changes, differences between systems and replicate systems. Now, since we are in the Programming Essentials track, I'll show you something a little bit more advanced. This functionality allows for advanced states. So I'm actually going to be able to execute a PowerShell command remotely. So we had a problem at one of my stations. You can, if you look really hard, you can see the name of the company in there in the file path. We wrote some software that updated utilization on the server, gave them the ability to report the station as up, down, maintenance, calibration, etc. Their IT had a problem with their certificate, and we were requiring the certificate because of the environment that we're in. I didn't have to go to every single station and disable certificate validation. I just wrote a PowerShell script that changed the config file, and I pushed it from SystemLink. Saved hours of time. Same thing, I've got a state that enables it. NIPM has this habit of installing feeds for downloads.ni.com. There's a batch command you can run to remove those feeds. Not many of the test stations that I work on and the customers I work with, does the test station have internet access. So every time you open an NIPM, it has to time out trying to reach ni.com because it's looking for the feeds that update NI Package Manager. Once the system's connected to SystemLink, I can run this state. Again, it's just a PowerShell script to remove those feeds, and I won't have to wait for that anymore. So not only am I able to manage the system and check the software on it, I'm also able to make configuration changes. This is behind our very robust role-based access control. Not everybody can do this. I'm logged in as an admin, so I can. All right. I'm looking at time. I'm going to try to accelerate a little bit. Systems management is one of my favorite components. I told you I would show you the existing reports and that you can just grab the Python code directly from it. So I've got an asset utilization report. I'm just going to use that one. I'll run the report. Over the last 30 days, I could add filters. I could look for specific stations, cells, time frames, however I want. Dev system, not a whole lot of data in it. But I also have this download source button. And if I click download source, I get a Python Jupyter notebook that I could go import to Jupyter Notebooks and make a change. I'm not going to dive into Jupyter Notebooks today. I just don't think we have time. I would be thrilled to walk somebody through that later if you want to follow up. Okay, so again, that report, let's say we just wanted to change it from showing the date to showing the station dash the date. We can grab that report, all the source code's there, make the changes that we want. Now I'm going to linger in test insights for just a second. This is where we put all the results data. You can see data flowing in from down there, down on the shop floor from this BPT2 system. If they run a sequence now, we're going to see it real time because they're connected in a way that feeds the data real time in the client. I can look at that test data, and you can see for you test end developers, it's main sequence callback because we're using the results plugin. And I can see what they did. And this was a failed station. They've got a low limit in there. I can see when it was run, how it was run. I can connect it to the system that was run. But I also see these file attachments. And test end does a really nice thing out of the box for me. It's going to attach any of the reports that are generated. It's going to attach a systems software report. So that software list that we were able to see over in software configuration, I can ask for a snapshot of that when I run the test. So 2 years from now, if I needed to come back and look at this exact test run, I can tell you what software was on that machine when that test run was done. We also have an assets report. So from the same perspective, I can tell you what hardware was used and what firmware was used. Hey, look at that. See, proof that it's not just NI equipment. There's a Gigabyte Technologies device in there. Hardware version, it doesn't look like they want to give me anything more than F5 for the firmware. But imagine the capability as a test engineer to do an RCA from years in the past, a test execution where you know how the test station was configured, who did it, when it was done. So you get all that context around it, not just the test station. Okay, There's a lot more to SystemLink. Those are the two modules that are primarily used by test engineers. The dashboards is just going to show you some, this is the widget-based dashboard. Out of the box, we can give you some high-level KPIs to make management happy, throughput, first-pass yield, system utilization, like I said, capacity planning is a big thing right now. I'm not going to dive into the reports. What I do want to do is actually go to LabVIEW. I promised we would do it. And I promised I wouldn't use any special code or code that you wouldn't have anymore. So I'm just going to go to Example Finder. If I click the right button, thanks mouse for moving. When you install the SystemLink client, it doesn't by default install the SystemLink toolkit. So I've installed the SystemLink toolkit for LabVIEW 2024 Q1. Flat surfaces would be wonderful right now. I apologize, y'all. Let me clear this, and I'll try extra hard this time. Find examples. We ship quite a few examples. I'm going to pick one that does test results. I'm going to make changes to it to add a file attachment, and we'll run it and we'll look at the data briefly. And then I'll jump over and show you a tags-based example as well. So anyone who downloads the SystemLink toolkit will have these examples readily available in LabVIEW. So I'm going to use the test monitor logging example. So it does allow for auto. Auto means it's going to pull the credentials that are registered via the client. So I don't have to go configure anything. I don't have to put username and password in or generate an API key. It's just going to use whatever the system is registered to. And I showed you all the SystemLink client earlier. Metadata for the result information. Let's go look at the actual block diagram. Man, I am just all sorts of hitting the wrong button today. There we go. Very well documented what we're doing. The configuration block, I'm going to go ahead and pull up. We hide under the data communication palette. So you can see we've got the configuration block. I have to make a change to the shipping example because my server, my SystemLink server, I've enabled HTTPS, but I used a self-signed certificate, so it's not valid. So I actually have to use a false to the verify certificate for it to work on my server. So that's a change that if you're using a dev server and you've enabled secure transfer, but you're not paying for a certificate, know that we support that. When I mentioned being able to change that setting on the customer that had broken their certificate, that's what I'd written into the code, was the ability to read an INI key. Initializing the results, we're just going to pull that in from the front panel. Creating a result, I'll even turn on context help. I know it's a little small. So you create a result. Steps are children to the result. So we'll create a step, give it a name, give it a type, add some information to it. We're just generating some fake data, just a random number. We'll update the step. So we've touched the object. We have to make a call to SystemLink to actually push that data. And then to make the changes apply to the result, we're also going to push that to the test result as well. And then close our configuration. And all our examples like to use a simple error handler. So right now, I've really done nothing except for disable validation on the certificate. I'm going to run it. And if we go to my SystemLink server and back to results, ta-da, we already have a result in. It's really that simple. You'll see that there's really no attachments to it right now. It doesn't benefit from that automatic functionality of getting the system report and the software report. Those are RESTful HTTP calls. I could do that in LabVIEW. I don't have time to do it in front of you today, but I could pull those reports, attach them to the test result just like we did. I promised in the description that I would show you what it actually takes to attach a file. So I'm going to open files. I've already got a nice send files function. Give myself a little space. So I want to call it before I do a update result call. So this is going to update the file, upload a file. I need to give it a path very quickly. I'm just going to grab something off my desktop, so y'all just ignore my junk. Browse for path. I've got to create job PNG. So I'm going to upload that. If I run it right now, it's going to upload that file, but it's not going to be connected to the result. To do that, I need to add it to the result. And what we do in SystemLink, you upload a file, you get a file ID, and you point the result to that file ID. So what I need to do is just grab a property node. It really triggers my OCD that this is crooked, but I'm trying to be quick. All right, the properties available for a test result are file IDs, and IDs is plural, so I need a flat surface is what I need. This is a new experience, y'all. I need a build array. So the file upload is going to give me a file ID back. I'll just build an array out of that one, drop it in here. All right, so now we're going to run that same sequence, create a test, create a step, load some data into it, but then we're going to attach a file. We'll upload a file and then point it to the test result. So I'll run that. Oh, look, authenticity of the server. So in this file, it's using that same function for configuration. So I'm just going to pull the configuration that we already set up. All right. Back in results on the web interface, we have the one that I messed up. Sorry, I forgot to disable certificate authentication, but here's the one that just ran. And we see the same step, and we now see a file attached to it. It's really not that hard, y'all. Upload a file and point it to the result. So we can attach any type of file. You can preview PNGs, PDFs, CSV files, text files, but let's say you've got drawings or sign-offs that you want to attach to the result for perpetuity to have those easily accessible. We added keywords that we can search for, and we tied it back to the system that it was run from. That's it. So you can go from there on test results. Looks like I have just enough time, y'all. This is going to work out well. I'm going to close the test results, test monitor example. Isn't it convenient that it's the exact same size so it can hide behind it? I'm just going to open the simple tag manager. Very similar APIs. So a very similar interface. It's going to ask me to create a tag. I'm just going to give it a name like demo.niconnect. See, I remembered niconnect this time. I'm going to give it a value. Collect aggregates, that's whether it's going to constantly track min, max, count, mean across all numeric values. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that. And I'll leave it as auto. I'm going to remember to go and wire that false into the certificate validation that I did earlier. All right. So we named that demo.niconnect. I'm just going to run this and jump over to my browser. And tags is under utilities. And like most groups of information or tables in SystemLink, I can search for demo. So there's demo.niconnect. We can see its current value in the aggregates. If I ran a lot of data through here, we would also automatically get a graph of the history of the data. So these can be very powerful for tracking slow-moving data or tracking tank levels, temperatures, et cetera, and connecting those to test stations or just the environment. I've got a customer considering using SystemLink since they've already got it, using it as a building management system, just so that they can track temps, lights, pressures, presence, et cetera. So the tag's incredibly easy to use as well. We created the tag that time. We could call the create again, and all it would do is update the value. We could write to the tag, and you can see that's just in the case structure. I'm not going to walk through all these. If we wanted, we could delete the tag from the server as well because this client has access to it. All right, the last thing I want to show y'all before we run out of time, and this is my absolute favorite thing. You're logged into SystemLink server. I told you all the documentation ships with it. The question mark, the manual is on the web. Sorry. You got to have internet access to get the manual. But if I click that HTTP API, I get Swagger. I was in tags. I went to help and I went to Swagger, HTTP, and it takes me to the tag service. So we can see what the actual functions are going on behind creating that tag. So here's a v2 tags, create or update a tag. I can see the raw data. I can see information about the data model. But I can also click try it out. I could run it right now. I'd have to go get a workspace ID, which is another API. Let me do one that's more querying something that already exists. Get a tag. Try it out. The tag path, we called it what? Demo.ni connect. I can see the curl command. It's just passing the name. So this is a get, HTTP get to that address. And I can see the actual response body. So when we did that write from LabVIEW, this is what went on in the background. So if there's any function in SystemLink that you need to know more information about, if you see something on the UI that you want to know how we did it so that you can replicate it in your system, come to the Swagger documentation. Run it, touch it, prod it. You get errors, you get information, you get examples. That's it, y'all. We have one very brief last slide. I'm in the product analytics group. So if you want to learn more about SystemLink, if you want to learn more about the analytics projects that we're doing, if you want to learn more about what people like Raytheon during the keynote this morning, attend some of these sessions. If y'all want to grab a snapshot, I can already see a phone up. These are the ones that are going to talk more about analytics. My next session is at the very end of May 22nd, tomorrow afternoon. It's called From Concept Through Execution, Analytics in Action. I'm going to focus more on getting value from the data that you can pump into SystemLink. I've got 3 examples of different customers, a contract manufacturer, a defense manufacturer, and a cameras manufacturer, where we applied data and analytics and the information that we were collecting with SystemLink and our big brother product, O+, Optimal Plus. So I'd be thrilled to answer any questions. We don't have a lot of time for them, but I'm going to stick around, so I'll open the floor.
Myself and my colleague work for that big giant corporation that was on stage today.
Beautiful.
How do they, a different part of it, but what were the issues with IT? And, you know, we have, what's it called, DXC and all this other kind of stuff to put stuff on the network. What kind of haranguing did they have to go through?
We were very, very fortunate. We managed to find a few DT people. So at that company, you can say the name, I won't.
RTX.
At RTX, thank you. That's the umbrella company over Raytheon and Collins. They don't call them IT, they call them DT. Okay, so we managed to get a couple DT people. We included them in the project. We showed them how it was going to benefit the users. We showed them the same demos that I was showing you. We got them very comfortable with what SystemLink was going to accomplish for them. And we helped to effectively down select the DT people that we were going to be working with people that got excited about what they were offering, what they were presenting. The hardest part after that was keeping them from going too fast. You're going to ask the security question that I know you want to ask. You mentioned DXP. Because we had those DT systems admins, certified admins, We were able to walk through the security reviews together. Initial rollout, we got rejected. SystemLink had one component that was too old. We pumped that into our R&D system. It was a month later, we had an update. We've sent it back to Raytheon. These are all public, so you're all benefiting from Raytheon finding very small aged CVEs. They're called CVEs if you look them up on the web, potential issues with software that aren't considered secure. So we actually worked directly with our customers. In that case, we found one. It was good. But that was the hardest part. And they came back and they told us what it was. I'll tell you, there were missing quotes around a registry key entry, right? Super easy fix. But it was something that was particular to them and it was hackable. So we fixed it. We were thrilled to fix it. That's as hard as it got. We had an incredible team to work with. I actually mentioned this. I was on the executive forum earlier. I got wait, IT was good to work with. Yeah. Include them in the project. Include them early. Explain what they're doing and how it's going to help you, and you're going to be better off. There's always going to be people that are grumpy. That's just the way it works. But we were very, very fortunate. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, let's wait for the microphone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was kind of in addition to that question, but was it the enterprise or the server that you used there?
So we're primarily using SystemLink Server on the RTX systems, and actually I'm doing a Collins install now as well, where we're using SystemLink Server. We do have an effort to review an installation of SystemLink Enterprise for y'all. But because of how y'all segregate your labs and your networks, you're going to see a lot of SystemLink Server installs. They have, obviously you heard who they are. They have to segregate information both by contract or by classified information. So we've worked in those classified environments. Some of the people on the team have security clearances and we can help you all with that. If that comes up, definitely reach out to your account manager and tell them to hunt me down and I can help. Thanks everybody.